You know, infrared was always so controversial because of this, by the way. We used to trigger all these fucking people, these gatekeepers, who considered themselves the preeminent authorities on classical Marxism, Leninism, Orthodox. But it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist anywhere. And anyone who wants to maintain it, the purity, you get called a fascist. So no one recognizes it exists. The syncretic experiments of infrared, the communism is Islam, Genghis Khan, all that kind of stuff, that's the only way. That's the only way. It's either going to be communism is Islam, or I should say, it's either going to be Marxism is Islam, or Marxism is furries. You choose. And for those of you that want to say, well, why don't we just say Marxism is Christianity? Okay, I have a response for that too. The reason that doesn't work is because, look, Islamic eschatology talks about the return of Jesus, right? Do you know why Islamic eschatology talks about the return of Jesus? Because Islam itself is a tradition that has always acknowledged Jesus was missing. Jesus was missing. In Islam itself, Jesus is, in a sense, he's missing. The Muslim world was created on an implicit basis and understanding of the fact that on earth, Jesus is missing. Now, let's look at the entire development of the Western world, okay? The whole history is a history of alienation from Jesus, if you think about it. I'm not going to go over it. You have to read Hegel. The whole Western world's a history of the alienation from Jesus, right? Okay, but somehow Jesus does come back. How does Jesus come back? Through Marxism, through communism. The communist movement is the return of Jesus Christ. So when Islam anticipated the return of Jesus on earth, that was in a way anticipating the writing of the Communist Manifesto in 1848 and the rise of the communist movement in the West and the whole arc of history that we call the history of the West. He never left us. Okay, but you're not paying attention. In the world, Jesus was manifestly being neglected. Jesus was being ignored. You think in the Western world they were upholding Jesus? No. In the Muslim world, were they upholding Jesus? No, they weren't. Jesus teaches mercy. Jesus teaches the universal mercy for mankind, right? Forgiveness of mankind. Well, the Muslim world was pretty brutal and harsh throughout its whole history. Jesus was missing. The Western world, Jesus was missing. You could say Jesus was always there the whole time. Okay, sure, but manifestly in the world, materially, Jesus wasn't there. So when Islam anticipated, why did Islam say the Messiah Jesus is going to come back? Why don't they say Muhammad's going to come back? Why don't they say the last prophet of Islam is going to come back? They say Jesus will return to this earth because Islam always acknowledged that the true message of Christianity was forgotten. Real Christianity was forgotten on earth. Islam acknowledged that. Real Christianity was ignored. It was forgotten. Michael Hudson proves it, right? So, of course, communism is Christian, but you can just say communism is Jesus. That's the truth. Communism is Christ. It's the Holy Spirit. That's Jesus Christ's message on earth. That's literally the return of Jesus, right? There's nothing on earth more worthy of Jesus Christ than communism. Nothing. How can you be worthy of Jesus Christ outside of communism? How can we say that we live in a world with Jesus if it's not communism? How can this disgusting, accursed, filthy empire of lies be worthy of Jesus? Of course it's not. So the idea that Jesus will come back, which both Christianity and Islam acknowledge, well, Islam also upholds that and says Jesus will return in the end of times. But I see the return of Jesus as the rise of communism in the form of Marxism in the West. But what meta-historical or theological or metaphysical framework makes it even possible to understand this arc of history, right? Well, you need something coherent and singular and unified. And when people say this, oh, this isn't adapted to America's condition, then why does America have a bunch of Unitarian sects that just emerged spontaneously? American Unitarian Christianity is literally something indigenous to America. For why? Why does America spontaneously create these Unitarian impulses and currents? Because Islam doesn't exist in the Middle East. It doesn't exist in the Muslim world. What they have in the Muslim world, the so-called Muslim world, is a series of habits and conventions that are borrowed from culture. There's no Islam. They have habits. They're praying 5 times a day. They're going through the motions of a religion. But belief in their hearts is gone. What about Iran? Well, Iran is also emerging on the basis of a modern revolutionary tradition. You know, Iran proving what's up. The truth is, a key part of the Iranian Islamic Revolution were educated intelligentsia that were, I wouldn't say Americanized, but they were intimately familiar with both America and Europe. And without them, there would not have been an Iranian Revolution. And so, I believe that real Islam will emerge in this land, America. The United States of America. E pluribus unum, out of the many one.